Hi, everybody. This is Cat Day, and I'm with SPM Media, and we are here with a special guest, CJ Wiley. Garrett, take it away.
Hi, CJ. I understand you're traveling right now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
About traveling.
Yeah. Where
I've
are you? Where are you going? Where'd you come from?
went with the Scotty Townsend Memorial Tournament. I got third there a few years ago and decided to come here and train a couple players. But I've been in Florida the last 45 days.
Yeah. What's in Florida
Before
for you?
that, huh?
What's in Florida for you?
Uh, nice weather.
Right. I'm in Wisconsin, so I definitely appreciate that.
I stay outside as much as I possibly can, so I go to Florida in the winter, and the summer it doesn't really matter much. I stay out of
Yeah.
Florida in the summer.
Right.
It's a
Right.
different kind of hot there. It's like Houston. It's almost
Humid.
unbearable.
It's humid, really humid down there.
Yeah.
So,
Mm,
so you're at this tournament. Do you have a schedule laid out for months in advance or a year in advance on different places you travel to, or do you simply find something that's on the books and try to meet it there?
Well, I mean, the most I've ever scheduled anything is probably a month or a month and a half in advance.
Right.
I'm spontaneous, so
Yeah.
like I didn't expect to be where I'm at now. I just some things happened, and I could see that there was a change in a few aspects of Florida, so I jumped in the car and drove straight to Monroe, Louisiana. So
Right.
12 and a half hours.
Yeah. So
I'm
you're
a
playing in this.
driving machine.
Oh,
I
I
love to
sounds
drive
like it.
because I use that chance to study. And, these days I don't listen to music at all. I was in the music business for a long time and I just rarely listen to it now. If I'm not trying to learn something, I'm probably not going to be listening to anything. So,
Right. Right. So you do a lot of books on audio, or how do you do that?
yeah, books on audio. YouTube used to be good. Now it's not so good because it's censored so heavily.
Right. Right.
mm,
Right. Yeah, that's difficult. Trying to find where you can find good quality information without the censorship that's always out there.
Well, it didn't used to always be out there, but I've been watching it pretty close for the last 5 years, and it's just steadily got. I mean, I remember when some of the people that I was studying with started getting censored by talking about transhumanism and stuff like that, and I just developed the understanding that if they're being censored, they're probably on the right track because
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that should not be on any platform, that involves violence and stuff like that. But yet they don't want you talking about stuff that really shouldn't matter unless it's true. So,
Right. Right. And then you got to look at who's censoring it to begin with.
well, I know
So,
who's censoring it. Yeah, it's not the government; it's the people that are behind Facebook, YouTube, Google.
of
It's
course, pulling
they've been
strings.
around for many, many years. They are super strong right now because they control the economic system. It's
yeah.
whoever controls the money controls whatever it is. I was in the nightclub business in a large scale. I had the number one nightclub in the state of Texas for 2.5 years, but I had it for 9 years, and it was an sophisticated operation. But I wanted my managers to, implement things that I was making decisions on, and people thought they were running the show, but they weren't running the show. I was. So,
Right.
but
Right.
when you get to that level, you don't. I've got a hustling background, so I can see things, my pattern recognition, and just psychological stuff is pretty enhanced because I did it all the time when I was young, and some of my fatherly figures were some of the greatest pool hustlers that ever lived. So
When did you
they
stop hustling?
when I was 23,
Wow, that was a bit ago.
And you said, okay,
7 years ago,
CJ, you
dog
told
years that
me
is.
that you
Right.
are from the Show Me State, and you won a
That's right.
championship here in Raytown. At tell me about that.
Well, that was really unusual because the state high school championships was in Raytown.
Uh-huh.
And when I went there, a guy that owned it named Don Brink and Raytown Recreation. Anyway, so I go to that tournament, and by that time I was already known to be, a money player and gambler. I was only 17, but I got second in the state of Missouri out of everybody when I was 17. So when I went to that high school state championship, they told me that if I'm playing in it, the other kids didn't want to play. So they told me they were going to have two spots. So they gave me a spot, told me I didn't need to play, and then played for another spot. So now I go from the state championships to the regional championships in Rockford, Illinois. So I call them up because it's like a 5-hour drive from where I'm at. Kansas City is a little closer, but
Mhm.
I call them up, and when they found out who I was, they said, "Oh, we decided you don't need to come here. We're just going to give you one of our spots and play for the next spot." So I got clear to the national championships and didn't have to play a game.
Oh
They
my God.
national
Wow.
championships. So when I had the national championships in Chicago, I ended up winning it pretty easily. But I had a big advantage because I was gambling against all these top, players in the Missouri area that were much older and more advanced and experienced than me. I just had a knack for it and had some really great mentors that showed me some things that gave me an advantage, especially in long matches.
Right. Who were some of your mentors here in Kansas City?
Mentors in Kansas City.
Yeah, or mentors
Um,
that you followed.
St. Joe was the closest I had to Rick Thompson was in St. Joe, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
I played him the first time, I think, when I was like 15 or 16. And then by the time I was 18, we were going on the road and I was playing a little bit better. I actually played him. We had an ego clash after one of our road trips, and we locked ourselves in his dad's bar in St. Joe, Missouri, and played for 12 straight hours. And I beat him 60 games ahead.
Wow.
Because all he had was $50, and he gave me the $50, and I gave it back to him. And it was just a notch on my belt that I needed because, at some point the teacher becomes the student. And when you're young and upcoming, you'll have guys that were kind of your teachers, and then there's a time when that role reverses, and
Right.
the younger player will win at some point. And that's what was happening to me, to a lot of people, because I had a lot of good road players that were much better than me. But by the time the smoke cleared,
Now you
because I
said
learned a
that
little bit off of all of them.
you're watching pool. I want to know from your experience from coming from a hustler to a professional pool player, and we were speaking just a little bit ago, and you say you do this more as a hobby now. Where do you see the future of pool and billiards transitioning from where it is going to from where it was?
Well, I mean, it's went downhill a lot because it's not on ESPN. That's a big deal. Back in the '90s, I was the liaison between we started another pro tour called the Professional Q Sports Association, and had all the ESPN events. So we were averaging 1 million people per show. And
Wow.
a lot of those people aren't really pool players. So when you're averaging 1 million people on ESPN, it really helps the billiard industry
Yeah.
in total, and I rode that wave all through the '90s, and especially '96 through '99. I was in the finals of the World Championships on ESPN 3 years in a row. I won it in '96 and got runner up in '97 and '98. So I was in a really key position because I was also the director of operations of the professional tour.
Mhm.
And that's when we put together the Earl Strickland, well, I say that now, the $1 million challenge, where if 10 racks in a row were ran, it was $1 million annuity. And that was 50,000 a year for 20 years. And if somebody ran 9 racks, it would be 100,000, and 8 racks would be
Wow.
50,000. So we put a carrot up, and I insured it with a prize indemnification company that what they do is they sell it up the line like banks do, and the Lloyds of London are on top. So when we had this dispute, we ended up getting a legal battle with Lloyd's London. I don't know if anybody's ever, because the legal fees were over 300,000, and the amount of paperwork that they accumulated was about 5 big boxes
Wow.
full. So,
Wow.
but Earl did end up getting the money, and there was a settlement made. He actually, see, a $1 million annuity at that time was worth 630,000. That's where a lot of people, there was all kinds of rumors about this, just a lot out of ignorance, because people thought, well, he won the $1 million annuity, he should get $1 million. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's just like if you win the lottery, you don't get all that money. Either you get a payment every year, or if you want to take all the money, you get about 60. At that time, it was 63%. So that's one of the things that got out there, is people like, oh, he didn't get all the money. Well, all the money was 630,000 or 50,000 a year for 20 years. And I gave him the first 50,000 myself. I wrote him a check, and my mother was involved with the business too. So I kind of forgot she was in with me, because we had to make it good. So when there was a discrepancy, I stood good for the 50,000. That damaged me. And Earl was being damaged because they were saying that they weren't going to honor the agreement. So we have a documentary on this whole thing with Earl Strickland at CJWiley.com. It's about a 90-minute documentary. It has Earl being interviewed by me, Max Eberly, Jay Helford, and a few others that were eyewitnesses to him running that 11 racks in a row is what he actually ran. So anyway,
Now you say, is this 8-ball, 9-ball? What are we talking about here, CJ?
that was 9-ball. Yeah.
That was 9-ball. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's ever done that before or since. The odds were 7.8 million to 1. So
running 10 racks in a row?
Do with pool, and I thought it was going to be huge, and I still think it probably would have been a lot bigger if he hadn't have done it the first tournament. But now I've been working on something else that I think is much, much better, but I just haven't released it yet. But I'm looking for the right time and place, because I want a headquarters for this thing, because I think it can do for pool what needs to be done, and that's to put it in a different format where it's more exciting, interesting, more strategic. Right now, the rules are keeping pool from showing its best side, so to speak. The whole 1 foul ball in hand. See, all those rules were changed by promoters, and their objective was to speed up the game and to put more luck into it. That way they could get out of the building quicker, because they were paid by the tournament, not by the hour. And they could get more participants because there was more luck in it, because they made money off the participants. I don't blame them for that business decision, but I do think the game suffered a lot, because you can't take away key components from a game and expect it to still be popular. Just like if you had a restaurant and all of a sudden you took some of the best things off the menu, you fired your lead cook, you started getting secondary ingredients, your restaurant isn't going to do very well over time. It's just going to, and that's what's happened with pool. We went from having 1 million people per show on ESPN to now lucky if we get 1,000 people on a streaming video show with the best players in the world battling it out. I know, because that's facts that I've seen for myself.
Right.
So anyway, we got to make some changes here. And I think I got the ideal way to do it. Like I said, I'm looking at some places. I'm traveling, giving these lessons, but more just to break even. That's why I say it's a hobby. My number one objective is to get pool as big as popular, big and popular as possible on the national stage and world stage. But I mean, I'm going to concentrate first at the state level. And it looks like Florida, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas,
the South.
The whole range there. I know a lot of people, and pool's very popular. So what I'm going to do is try to figure out how to get that up and going within the next 3 or 4 months. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that should be
How do
exciting.
you see the Olympics playing into this? I've heard a lot of people trying to get pool into the Olympics for years and years, and we're petitions signed, a lot of stuff I've seen on social media. How do you see that coming through in the future at some point?
In the Olympics. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think that would help pool, but I mean, it would in some ways, but not in the areas that I'm interested in. I mean, look at some of those things they have on the Olympics is just
ridiculous.
it's horrible. So I'm not a big Olympics fan. I didn't watch any of it. It has a lot of social engineering, and you know, if you watch, especially go back and watch the Olympic ceremony from 2012, and then just think about what we've been through the last 3 years and see if there isn't a connection, because it's a huge connection. They're using the Olympics to mass program a lot of people in ways that they're not even able to detect. And this isn't a theory. This is under Richard Bandler, who was one of the best in the world. And it's easy to see once you've got the trained eye. Just like pool, I can see things in pool other people can't possibly see. But once I point it out, then they can see it too, because there's a rule: we can only recognize what we're familiar with. So if you're not familiar with something, you're not going to be able to see it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's just like another language. If you're not familiar with that language and people are talking in front of you in that language, you can say that they're not communicating, but that would be silly. You just can't understand the communication. Once you can
Right.
understand the communication, whether it's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, even eating, you know, I mean, you develop a palate. I mean, some of the greatest chefs have a better taste, or wine tasters have better tastes. So we can develop ourselves, but we have to do it with knowledge, and it has to be true. And that's where, you know, like I said, I'm from a hustler background. I know how to trick people into thinking things are true that aren't. And I also can detect things that aren't true and tell them about it. But my record's almost perfect. Every single person I've ever told at the very beginning that they're getting hustled, none of them have ever believed it. And some of them get angry. You know, it's like you're telling them, you know, their wife's cheating on them or something. But there's two different kinds of people in a big category. Some people want to know the truth, and other people are okay with not knowing the truth and just
I know
living
the
their
truth.
lives. And, you know, so I'm, I, I want to know what this world's about. I want to know where we're from, why we're here, how we got here,
Mhm.
all these things that can be answered, but you got to dig deep because it's been covered up through many years of social engineering is basically what it is. Mind control. And if somebody doesn't think it exists, then I'll bet anything I have, and I'm a pretty good gambler, that they're under it.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, the only way I can keep myself from being hustled is to admit that I can be hustled. If I can't do that, then I'm a mark. I am a sucker, is what we say. Because everybody that I've ever hustled was trying to hustle me. You know, you can't
Right.
hustle an honest man, is what they say. So, you know, I just knew how to. I used to play when I was young and in high school with my lunch ticket hanging out of my pocket. Remember those orange lunch tickets?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you have
Yeah.
those where they punch them? Oh man, that worked so good. People would say, "What is that in your pocket?" I say, "It's a lunch ticket," and I'd pull it out
Uh,
and show it to them and tell them all about the school lunches and how terrible they were and how they made us eat 2 bites of everything and how we hid our peas in our milk carton
mhm.
because the teacher was so mean and I wasn't going to eat those peas. But that's how you know, the best way to hustle somebody is just tell them the truth. You know,
Yeah.
I never told people I couldn't play and wasn't very good. I told them I was the greatest. I'm the best. Nobody can beat me. I'm the best. You know, I'd tell people I'm the best in the country. I just don't play as good in the city. But that's what gets people. You know, if you joke with them and act cocky and all that, it works like a charm. But if you're serious, like there was a period in my life where I couldn't do that as well because I was programmed not to hustle people, but to beat the very best players gambling. So my
Mm.
partners would always tell me, we'll make the games because there's something about when you're in a zone in pool, you can tell it in their eyes.
Hold up. Your partners would tell you we'll make the repeat that.
Yeah, they'll match the games up for me and told me to
Okay.
go to the other side of the room room and just not look at them, not talk to them, because I was in a zone where people could feel it. You know, it's intimidating.
Right.
It's hard to be an intimidating top pool player and a hustler at the same time. That's really, it's a duality there. It's
Because when you hustle people, you're trying to get them to believe something that's not true, and then in the process of doing that, that's when your truth comes out, that you are an actual incredible pool player, and that's when you
well,
take money.
not really. You just said I'm trying to make them believe something that's not true. I'm trying to make them not believe something that is true. See, I'm telling them I'm the best. Nobody can beat me. I want them to not believe that truth. See, the hustling at the highest levels, you always tell them the truth, but you twist it, and you use that to to manipulate's got a bad term. Manipulate's just really, you can just move something from one place to another, and you're manipulating it. So it's not all bad, but yeah, the best way to hustle somebody is just tell them how great you are, and tell them the truth. But and even overdo it, tell them, I'm the best in the world. That may not be true, but it's, it's along that line of making them not believe something that's true. Anyway, it's involved. I've done a lot of videos on that, and mind control techniques, and it's fascinating to me. I mean, I've been studying this for a long time. It started 32 years ago with stock. That's the government facility. That's really a part of the CIA that's in charge of mind control. They did MK Ultra and Project Mockingbird. Have you ever heard any of that? MK Ultra? Really? You have never heard of that?
That's new to me.
Bill Clinton, our president,
Right.
He made a public apology for MK Ultra and what he did, or what they did to people. It was horrible. And there's documentaries about it. It's absolutely true. It's just something that most people, it's been kept from you for a reason. They don't really want people to know how much they've experimented on the human mind.
Right.
So, I mean, there again, it's there for anybody to find. If you want to just look up MK Ultra mind control, and you'll see what they actually did to develop the technology of social engineering, which is their highest technology. It's not helicopters on Mars, it's mind control.
Right.
And again, I appreciate that, because my whole life at the beginning was about that without really realizing it. And so when you're a pool hustler, it's like pure mind control. You're trying to get to them, they're trying to get to you. It's a beautiful way to learn it. I think anybody that can navigate in a pool room like Buffalo's in Louisiana, if you've ever been there, to New Orleans, like there's some super smart people there. That's probably the hub of some of the greatest gamblers in the country right now, is in New Orleans. And it's not, easy to go there and win because you won't really know where you're at. It would take a very sophisticated gambler to go there and win. Anybody that's not is going to get beat in a pool room like that. I mentioned that one, but it used to be, there was Detroit. Have you ever heard of that? The rack?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
one guy lost 15 million at this place. I mean,
wow.
Man.
Anyway, I've told stories about all this. It's forgotten, which is kind of a shame, because some of those stories from those pool rooms like that are just incredibly good. So,
What's your next biggest accomplishment, do you think?
To what?
The industry.
My biggest accomplishment.
What
do you think?
That's my first test. What?
What do you think your next? What are you trying to achieve next?
Oh, next, I'd like to put pool in the national spotlight, and I think it can be done. But to change the game literally has to change. So what I did was I put the whole game into basically a formula. You know what a profit and loss statement is, right? the
Mhm.
where you have the profit and loss. Instead of profit and loss, I did strengths and weaknesses and put the whole game of pool in a formula using my past knowledge, because the rules were a lot better when they were playing 2 foul instead of 1 foul, ball in hand. And the ball in hand was never anywhere on the table. It was behind the line, the second
In the
diamond up,
kitchen.
there's a line there, and you have to keep the ball behind that line. And if the ball you're shooting is behind that line, it spots up. See, the
Mhm.
spot shot is a big, big part of pool, and they just took it out like nobody would miss it. So it's like taking the free throw out of basketball. If they took the
Right.
free
Wow.
throw, well, there's no more free throws, people just wouldn't realize how much it would change the game of basketball. And because there's enough people that care and they're in control, they're not going to let that happen.
Right.
In pool was never supposed to be part of the game. It maybe if the ball's hanging in the pocket, you might kick it in, but none of those old time players would ever kick a ball. They used to say, "I'm not going to kick it my money." They would look at you like you were just, crazy if you wanted to play 1 foul, because they would say kicking is, you can't protect your money. So the really good gamblers do not like to play that game. I don't like to play it. I'll play it if I have to, but I won't play it very long because I lose my interest in it after just a couple hours. But I used to play the 2 foul. It was called two shot shootout, or rollout, or push out. It went by those different names. But I would play guys for like over 20 straight hours and enjoy every bit of it, because you get in such a deep battle mentally with the other player. I mean, you're basically getting in each other's heads. That's what I really mean when I'm talking about mind control, is to get really deep into that competitive mode. And again, it can be used in a lot of different ways, mostly negative, just like manipulation. Most people use that word negatively, but it's really not a negative word. Just like mind control, the ability to control your mind is actually a good thing. It's
Right.
not good when other people understand it better than you, and they can do things to you that you're going to be unaware of. And that's what's going on now at a worldwide level, that I try to tell people, but I don't try too hard, because I'm not interested in, I can't really change what other people believe and don't want to, What I do is I try to give them more information where they can start to come to the conclusions of what is true on their own, because that's the only way we can do it.
Mhm.
Nobody can convince us of anything, if you've noticed. And most
Right.
people are
Right.
pretty rebellious. So if you try to make them believe something, they'll absolutely go the other way.
Exactly.
It's, I just am fascinated by human nature. That's all.
That's
That's
What do you
incredible.
think?
I think that's incredible. I think that the psychology behind pool is something that a lot of people don't study, and more so study to the depths that you have, and the fact that you've held such um, high astute places in your past and in your present makes you dangerous, and in a good way.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, it's
I So
what's that?
what
You
I said
talking
what
to
I
me?
was getting at, yeah.
Oops.
What I was getting at was that people that like to study a lot and like to study the process of studying are the people that are um, proficient in pool. Would you agree with that, CJ?
Well, it depends on what they're studying. There's a lot. I'd say there's probably 99 things wrong to one thing that's right when you go out and just try to discern for yourself without any help.
Mhm.
Like, like everything that I've done in my life, I have always sought out people that were experts, that were real experts, not the kind on TV, but the ones that have a name. If if I'll give you a little hint, if they ever say experts say, whatever they're saying after that is probably propaganda, because if they don't mention names,
Mhm.
it's just a technique, like scientists say, doctors say. I mean, I got advertisements when doctors used to say that menthol cigarettes were better than regular cigarettes for pregnant women.
Wow.
Yeah, they used to do that. Of course they did.
Yeah,
Now they're saying the same stuff. They're just talking about different things. But
right.
some people know it's bad. Some people think it's good. But I think you have to do your own determination in this life, man. If you go
Mhm.
see, I think one of the problems with this whole reality that we're in is we've all been trained to outsource our food, our entertainment, our knowledge, our learning, our belief system. It's like we're trusting other people for a lot of things that even 30 or 40 years ago were being done more on our own,
Mhm.
like trusting your kids in a government controlled schooling system. I think people need to take a good look at that because you need to know who wrote those books. It means something. I think everybody kind of just wants to think that, oh, all those school books were written by people that really loved us and wanted our kids to do great. Yeah, right. That's absolutely false and can be proven beyond any doubt that a lot of the stuff in the school textbooks are not true. They've just
Uh-uh.
been said over
Oh,
and
yeah.
over and over and over until people just go, oh, that's how it is. But I can tell you countless examples of how that's happened. And I've been on both sides of it. Like I said, it just takes repetition. One of the things that I told in one of my videos that I did, I do these adventures on the road videos, but I
Uh-huh.
try to
Yeah, I
put some
see those
stuff
a
in
lot.
there that's got some wisdom to it. But there's to be under mind control, there's four different levels that you do, whether you're hustling somebody at a small level or at a big level, whichever. The first one is focus. You have to make people focus on something, right? And then you have to get them to emotionally attach to that. Then you need to aggravate them, change their schedule, change when they got to go to bed. You got to aggravate them.
Uh-huh.
Then it the last one is repetition. You got to do it over and over and over and over and over and over. Now that the acronym of that is fear. F is focus. E is emotionally attach. A is aggravate, and R is repetition. So that's just that's like a solid base that you can look at. And if that's happening, if you can see that happening, you have to investigate further that you might be, there might be people behind the scenes trying to put you under mind control.
Mhm.
I just
Right.
think it's good to know that. I don't care if people agree with if it's happening or not, but I will assure you in your life it's happened and it probably will continue to happen, especially if you're not aware of it and don't care about learning anything about it. You
Right.
Right.
know what I'm saying? So again, I just have a background that's very unusual because of the pool hustling at a younger age, but always just a thirst and an for knowledge. That's the way I've described it to people. I got on a kick 22 years ago where I was just going to try to prove the Bible wrong. So I got the best teachers I could find in the world and found out pretty quickly that you had to get the original translations because they transliterated a lot of words
Mhm.
instead of translating, and whether they did it on purpose or not, that's another discussion. But you have to get the purest form possible. So, I mean, I did. I set out. I was just going to prove it wrong once and for all. I never had to think about it again. And after about 1,000 hours, almost right to the minute, it seemed like uh, something happened, and I could see the world differently. Then I did another 1,000 hours and quit. And this was 22 years ago, and I took it
Mhm.
back up about 5 years ago.
Um,
I've just been
that's
fascinated
incredible.
by the biblical manuscripts because once you decipher them, see, that's the thing. They're a cipher. They had to be snuck into this world, and once you can decipher them, you start to see why these churches don't teach what's in there. They teach a lot of surface level stuff, but
Right.
in anything you study, there's going to be three levels. There's a surface structure, which some people just never go beyond, and then
Mhm.
there's a mental structure, which you contemplate and you run through your mind and you try to figure out. But then there's a third level that's more, you could call it a spiritual level or a deep level.
Mhm.
And that's where the real wisdom is. And again, whether you're talking about these ancient manuscripts or you're talking about playing pool, playing golf, doing better in your business, all of these same things apply. So when I'm talking about these different subjects, I could talk about the same thing and just talk about pool. That's why I say the game is the teacher, because I can draw a bridge from pool, some aspect of pool, to just about anything else in conversation that's physical or mental and even spiritual because of, getting into the zone, or we used to call it dead stroke. I remember when I was a tennis player when I was young. And so the first book that I really read about the mental side was Tim Galloway's Inner Tennis. Have you ever heard of that? He had Inner Tennis, Inner Golf, but he used another book called Zen and the Art of Archery to, and he acknowledges that in his preface of Inner Tennis. So Zen and the Art of Archery is a book I've read probably 6 or 7 times because it is another one that's high level. It's got a real deep meaning to it. And if I read the book again, I would get Ian that goes to Japan with his wife to learn Zen, and he's going to learn it through archery and she's going to learn it through flower arranging. But you just need something. You need something to be able to express yourself. And what he went through in archery to master that is exactly pretty much what you would do to master pool. You have to get your physical part right, but then you have to be able to connect to the game so that it becomes a representation of yourself where there's really a ability to express yourself. Again, like we said before this started, like painting or a musician or anybody that's expressing themselves needs to do it through something. So whether it's music, art, or pool, or golf, or tennis, or chess, or tic-tac-toe. So, and that's what's fascinating to me is how these all connect and how I connect to the game of pool. Because I used to do that and get into a zone that I would play phenomenal, but I couldn't remember what I did. It'd be like a dream. So I set out several years ago to figure out what I was doing. And I had it pretty, my first videos I did, 25 years ago. And I still wouldn't go back and change anything, but I can add to it quite a bit because I've figured out the deepest levels in all these categories, and I'm continuing to. But I'm as close right now to my goal as I've ever been. And I wanted to be the best teacher in the world because I want to be the best pool player in the world. Now, whether I can or can't, that's my goal. So.
Yeah, a lot of these younger players have grown up watching you. Like I was talking to Brad Swain the other night, and I told him that you were going to be on here, and he was like, "Oh wow, I grew up watching him." So you've got a lot of respect.
Well, it's the golden oldies channel that I'm on now. I keep saying I'm going to take the game serious and play as much as I need to win another major tournament, but that's easier said than done. I still think I can do it. There's no reason I couldn't, other than it does take 4 to 6 hours a day of practice, and you have to dedicate yourself to it. And again, I'm doing so many things right now that it's and I've said it. It's not that I'm lying, maybe to myself, but I've said I'm going to take it seriously several times, and just have not found the time and really the passion to do it, because the teaching is, I'm getting close to not having to do that anymore, but it's been a great experience for me to travel around, meet a lot of people and share this knowledge. And, but that is going to be another chapter of my life that when I stop doing it, I won't do it anymore. And that's getting closer, but what I'm going to substitute that with is my big goal. And that's to really make a difference with pool, get it back on TV, make it a exciting, entertaining, and strategic game, because it is better than any other in its full form. Right now, I would guess it's at about 28% would be, and I think it's maybe lower than that, but I'd make
its full form of what it can be.
28% of what it could be. Pardon?
Wow. Are you talking about in the digital form of being on TV and on media, or you're talking about the game as a whole?
The game as a whole.
Wow.
Which transfers to that, of course. But
right.
like if I was to identify all the best components of pool, I would be able to point it out because I can do this. You know, I mean, if I was in a debate with somebody, they would have no chance because I can actually identify these components and show you how it's not able to come up very much in the rules that are being played today. Now, one pocket is a great game, but it has too many dead shots. See, if you don't really understand one pocket, it's not going to be a game you'll want to watch. And
Oh yeah.
the more you understand it, the more you would enjoy the little safety, the nuances of the game. And I can see that, but I can also see that very few people are going to be able to.
Right. What about
Deep? There's some deep level to one pocket that it would take players like Efren to be able to see, or Tony Shohan, or whoever the best players are. Corey Deuel. I asked Corey one time. I said, when you're looking at the table in one pocket, I said, I didn't grow up playing it, so it looks like Greek to me for about 2 or 3 days. I said, but what do you see when you're looking at the table and the balls? What do you see? He said, I see centers and edges. And see, that's deep. I understand exactly what he meant by that, but most people wouldn't. Like centers, edges of what? Well, centers are edges of the balls. We don't look at them like they're round or spherical balls on a table. We look at them like they're two-dimensional, like they're drawn on the table, so that you can make sections into them and connect them as one mass. When I'm shooting the cue ball and the object ball, there's not two masses, there's one. I'm connecting one into the other to produce that angle and the reaction I want with the cue ball, all as one. I'm not doing it in 3 different ways like most other people. I'm not trying to hit this spherical ball into this spherical ball at a contact point and make that ball and make it. That's not what I'm doing at all. What I show people how to do is get into a position where you're aligning to the shot, where you can literally plug into the game. Because the first thing I do is set my body the same to every single shot. And it's either center to center or center to edge, like a half ball shot. That's my starting point on every single shot I shoot. Unless the tables, if I'm jacked up and reaching for balls, it changes a little bit. But I'm talking about under regular situations. You have to have a way to plug into the shot. Now, what most people will say was, I plug into the shot line. Well, that's different every time. I have a shot line too, but you see, I have 2 lines instead of just one. Where I figured out how I was doing this subconsciously is I had a friend that did military science. He was one of those people. His job was to figure out at over 20 miles away how to hit a target about the size of a pool table with a missile. Okay. Now that's not easy to do. That's a long way. So what he had to do is he had to have a fixed point and triangulate using it like a protractor, triangulate that angle. And that's what hit me. I was like, man, that's what I'm doing. They're using the sun or the North Star at night to triangulate these missiles that are 20, and then what I said is, if he can shoot something 20 miles away, I can surely shoot something 4 feet away or 8 feet away. You see what I'm saying? But listen, this is using the sun or the North Star. I'm triangulating using the center to center or the center to edge. And then from that reference, I'm triangulating, and you can do that subconsciously. If I showed you what you're doing currently now, subconsciously, to play as well as you do, I will convince you in just a few minutes that if you got your alignment right and understood the fundamentals better, you could use all that mental horsepower that you're currently using just to correct that stuff to actually play the game at a high level. So you can't play the game at a high level if you're not connecting to it like I do and Efren does and Alex Pagulayan and Shane Van Boning and Sky Woodward. And I can show you they're all doing the same thing. Now, do they know it? No, because they haven't tried to figure it out, and they may not want to. Because
CJ, you mentioned just before here about one pocket and about how you thought that was an extremely high level game. What do you think about straight pool?
Straight pool is a great game, overall pool game to practice. I I've only played in one major straight pool tournament in my life. And when I first started playing it, the first day I couldn't run a rack of it. I could run them in rotation, but I couldn't run them shooting any ball. I just kept getting myself locked up on. So a friend of mine gave me a book to go home and look at. And I learned the break shots and learned how you like you clear them off the rails first, for instance. That's just a kind of a common denominator in the game. But within a week, I'd ran 134 and then went to the tournament and actually beat Efren in the winner's bracket. And he double dipped me in the finals. Now I learned and would practice that game to enhance my one pocket, but I would not play straight pool the game against other champion players because I'm not 120 or 150 balls.
What do you think about
running 714?
Yeah, that was my next question. What do you think about that? That's
well,
incredible.
It's a great feat, but I mean, it's still, I mean, it's, anything that you're going to have a world record in, I would think that you'd be playing against somebody else. I mean, Mosconi was playing, and you could say it's an exhibition, but he was still playing against somebody. I mean, if I wanted to break the record of 9-ball racks run, and I just went in my basement and locked myself down there for 3 months, and every minute was trying to break that record, I think I probably would. But so would a lot of other people. But if I was playing against people in a tournament, see, it's not going to happen. I wouldn't count on it. And a lot of the time they're not playing races long enough to do it. Like you can't run 714 points in a race to 150 playing straight pool. So
right.
So that's hey, Jason, I like Jason. He's a friend of mine. I mean, I've been around him several times. I've did the commentating for several of his matches. He's a good guy. Quite honestly, before I knew Jason, I didn't think I would like him because of his TV appearance and the way but you see, you got to understand, he's doing what I do as well. It's an act. It's okay to act. It's like people get offended. It's like, oh my God, he was on TV and he was acting. Yeah, TV, they're acting. That's what, the Mosconi Cup is acting. You think all those players want to jump up on the table and do all that animated emotional stuff? No, they don't. They're told to do that. And it's a show. The Mosconi Cup, I mean, it's got serious elements, but for the most part, it's a made for TV pool show. So that's not the direction that we really need to go in. I mean, pool's not really a good team sport, and that's okay. I mean, chess isn't a good team sport. I mean, ping pong isn't a good team sport. Really, golf isn't. They've got the Ryder Cup, and it's good to have one of those events a year. I think the Mosconi Cup's great once a year, but twice a year, I don't think so. I think once is enough. Do it really good, make it a big show, and it's good for pool. But get it on ESPN, Barry.
Right.
Barry Hearns, I'm talking to.
On that note, CJ, I think we're going to wrap this up here. It's been an extreme pleasure talking with you. And me personally, I'm really curious to learn a little bit more about what we spoke about here today. Can we potentially have you on the show again in another month or so?
Sure, yeah. And anything that I cover, and this goes for any time in my life, if somebody's interested in learning more, I will help them learn more. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I can't, but I will do that, and I do it all the time. You'd be surprised how many isn't pool related.
Right. Okay.
Like I say, the game is the teacher. Once you know the game, you can learn just about anything if you know how to build the bridge. So
Right.
So yeah,
sounds good to me.
That's a long answer, but I'll be glad to be back on.
Yeah.
Sure. Kat, let's get this wrapped up, and we will have you on again. All right, CJ?
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate your hospitality.
All right.
Yep. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Aloha.